Really?
Yes. So his name is actually pronounced Dr. Seuss. So, but
Huh.
Dr. Seuss wrote Green Eggs and Ham on a dare that he couldn't write a story with a vocabulary of 50 words or less. And Green Eggs and Ham consists of no more than a 50-word vocabulary.
I didn't know that.
Yup.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty incredible. So, I mean, it is repetitive, but it's like a pop song. So it's repetitive for a really good reason. But yes, he won the bet, and the bet was 50 words for $50.
All that for $50.
Nice.
Well, yeah. I mean, he became a millionaire because of that $50, didn't he?
That's a good point.
So, the Lorax is the other one I was thinking of.
Just so you guys know, we're live. I'm still setting up though, so I think this Dr. Seuss conversation is great. See, Dr. Seuss, what was it?
Seuss, Dr.
Seuss.
Seuss is actually how he pronounced his own name.
Okay, that kind of reminds me of Aleister Crowley, but Crowley had a thing. Those who know me call me Crowley. Those who foul me call me Crowley. But yeah, like Crowley just sounds so much better though.
Yeah,
It does.
it really does. You know, one of my favorite quotes from him is I can't remember which book it is in, but there's actually there are two quotes from him that I'm really very fond of, and one is the magical way to open a door is to walk across the room, turn the knob, and pull.
Nice.
And the other one
Nice.
is, if you find a child drowning in a pool, it serves no purpose to invoke the undines. You need to jump in.
That's good
So
too.
it was his way of saying that, like, you cannot cast fireballs from your hands. It doesn't matter how much you think that you can or you try to, you're never going to be able to cast lightning or fireballs from your hands, no matter how much you study magic. Magic is all about the intent to achieve a goal. And if you're going to stand on the side of a pool and think for 1 second that you can save a drowning child by standing there and summoning an angel that's going to do it for you, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
You need to jump in the pool and pull that child out. And that's the only way that you're going to save that child.
And that's magic.
And that's magic. And why? Because it's manifested intent.
Yeah.
And it's ridiculous. Like the number, my boss and I were talking about this earlier. Like, my boss Marlo, who still really wants to talk to you and would love to be on your podcast. We were talking about it earlier today. And where should I go with this? Okay, we're still waiting on Neve, so let's just
we can go ahead and get started. We're live.
Okay.
And I got everything set up. Hey Alice, welcome to book club. We were just talking about Dr. Seuss and I guess also then Aleister Crowley. But that we're just flying by the seat of our pants. But what we're here tonight to do is to discuss The Hellbound Heart by Clive Barker. And as soon as I said that, thunder struck. So that was cool.
Spooky.
Yeah. And by extension, Hellraiser movie. That and I guess the subsequent series that spawned after that, which was also directed by Clive Barker. So
Oh.
it's one of those weird things where the book that the movie was based on was actually directed by the guy who wrote the book.
Wait, you're saying the subsequent series? Are you talking about like the one that's apparently on some streaming service right now,
Yeah,
like Netflix or some shit, or Prime Video or Hulu?
Hulu just made a new Hellraiser, 2022,
And
which
it's directed by Barker.
no, the original 1987 Hellraiser is directed by Clive Barker.
Oh, but the remake series is not.
No, I don't think. There's like 10 Hellraiser movies. I don't know if Clive Barker has anything directly to do with any of the sequels. And I don't think he had any involvement with this most recent reboot either.
Mm.
But I know he did the first one, which was cool. And the first movie follows the book pretty closely. They're like pretty much the same, except I have a gripe with the movie ending, which was just very, very Hollywood. Uh,
I've never
yeah.
seen the movie, so I'm shocked to hear that it's so similar to the book.
Yeah, did you read the book?
Yep, I did read the book. I listened to it all
Nice.
on audiobook while I was at
Hell
work.
yeah. I've done the audiobook too. It was nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great book actually. It's I've read a few of Clive Barker's books and I think this one might be my favorite
Hmm.
because it's just so well written and it's actually one of his earlier works. But what I really like about this book is the rhetoric and like poetry he uses when he's describing certain things. Like I wonder if I can find it, but there's a part where Kirsty she gets she's in the house with Frank and Julie when uh right after they ate Rory, or he puts on Rory's skin,
Ugh.
and she scratches him, and the way he described it grossed me out, but it was kind of beautiful in its own Clive Barkery way. It was like um the recently developed flesh gave way to reveal the blood buttered meat beneath, and I was like, oh,
Ugh.
oh.
Blood buttered meat. Mm.
And that was I mean, I feel like that's kind of the power of Clive Barker and his illustrative ability to really like freak you out in a horrific way. I was talking about this with Neef, who will be here soon, but it what I really noticed reading this, and I guess the movie as well, is it's he took a page from Lovecraft. It's very cosmic horror if you think about the Cenobites.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but he's got a more, I guess, like modernized approach to cosmic horror, I guess, which like I guess it felt more real to me, I suppose. But I it's funny because I wouldn't put, just off the top of my hat, I wouldn't put like Clive Barker in with cosmic horror like Lovecraft. But when I think about Hellraiser, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Um, something else I really, this is a gripe about both the movie and the book. Um, what Frank goes through when the Cenobites trap him, like they put him through this ridiculous torment. And when Julie or Julia, can't remember, when she pulls him out or he's brought back to life, he's more or less the same. He's like, and that's something I kind of like. He was in this like inhuman torment, like beyond comprehension for years, for like 3 years. And it's like that would break you. Not only would it break you, but it immediately reminded me of Odin, the Norse god.
Mm-hmm.
There's a tale about him where he's impaled on the Yggdrasil tree, Yggdrasil,
Mm-hmm.
and
So, yeah.
yeah, and on the Yggdrasil, while he's in this, while he's dying, he has this vision quest where he learns the runes, and through this sacrifice, he's able to bring that back to man and teach man magic. Really, it's very Promethean. Um, but I thought about that when I was reading Hellbound Heart, because like what Frank went through, not only would you be scarred and like severely traumatized, you would learn things in that depth of torment. You would learn things that humans would never learn. And I think Clive could have done a better job exploring sort of the psychology of that. Whereas when he comes back, he is more aggro, and he's like very, very like angry, but he's more or less how he was before, you know? So that was my pet peeve about it.
He's still so self-serving, even though you would think since he wants to escape this realm, he would have some sort of I don't know, a better understanding of empathy or compassion or something. And instead he's just still a total monster and
Yeah.
immediately commands her to do monstrous things on his behalf.
Yep.
And she does it, which that was weird to me. Like I thought there would be some like time period of her being broken down into doing these murders, and just immediately she was like, oh, well, time to go murder somebody, which I thought was a very strange character choice for her.
Yeah. Um, like he really tries to drill home in, I guess, both the book and the movie, like just how deeply in love she was with Frank. But I have this suspicion that, because it seems like it all started when they got back to the house, right? And it's like, okay, so
Right.
she's in the room where they had an affair, and it's like she's she's like connected with that energy. And I think maybe she's not so much in love with Frank and doesn't hate her husband so much, and she's just like possessed by
Mm,
Frank's will, I guess, even before he
mm-hmm.
actually, just by being in the house before he actually manifests there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because some essence of him is still there. I mean,
Yeah.
he's in the wall or whatever, like he's there. So that makes sense.
Yeah, because I thought about that too, that it's kind of, yes, I understand that like in her psychology, it kind of makes sense why she would do this, but it does keep seem like a stretch. Like I agree. Like it's a weird thing for her character to do. It's a weird thing for anyone to do. She goes through very great lengths to save this guy, which is pretty crazy. Like she murders several people to save her husband's brother,
And then she
who,
just like immediately regrets it too. Like as soon as he's back into full form, she was like, "Whoops." So I feel like there's just a lot of sudden decisions in this book.
yeah, and the like sort of Shakespearean comedy of it is she gets eaten in the end.
Yep, yep.
It's like it all bites her in the ass.
Yep. Pretty quickly. Everything goes south very fast.
I think that's actually it's worth noting from very early on page 17 Frank is established as basically just being um uh completely half, well, not completely, but like half dead on a sexual level, on a libidinal level. And it's on, if you look at page 17, if you looking at this,
Yeah.
page 17, the second full paragraph, he says he was dimly aware as he worked his inches. I mean, right there, just like the use of the word inches is, instead of penis or referring to it as what it is, like he's using technical measurements to refer to his own body part. And that right there just makes him dead from the get-go. So he was dimly aware as he worked his inches that he must make a pitiful sight. So he's feeling bad, but he's not feeling bad about the fact that he refers to his own body part as a metrical measurement. He or an American measurement, because it's inches, is inches, not millimeters. But he's feeling bad about the action. A blind man in an empty room aroused for a dream's sake. This is the poetry. This right here is the poetry. But the racking, joyless orgasm failed to even show the relentless display. His knees buckled and his body collapsed to the boards where his spunk had fallen. There was a spasm of pain as he hit the floor. Notice he uses the word spasm to rhyme with orgasm.
Oh, yeah.
As he hit the floor, but the response was washed away before another wave of memories. Like, guy's soulless to begin with.
Yeah. Yeah, this is actually, I'm glad you brought this section up because I forgot how great this is.
Yeah, it's brilliant, dude. It's pure poetry. It's fucking great.
Yeah, this is when he's first, I guess maybe for people who aren't so familiar, maybe I should back up a little bit. So the book's premise, and y'all can help me out here. There's a man named Frank, and he's a spoiled rich kid, and he's a fucking asshole, and he does all the drugs in the world, and he feels like he's exhausted all of his pleasures, and in a very Faustian way, he decides to he hears tale of a portal to inhuman pleasures through the grapevine somewhere.
And he expects it all to be, basically, it's not written down, but he expects that portal of pleasures to be the equivalent of the 72 versions in heaven in Islamic myth.
You made me forget where I was at.
Sorry.
But
he
that really
mentions
threw me off.
he mentions that where he's like, he's expecting, he's literally it and Barker uses this word, he's expecting hordes and moans and groans and orgasms, and it's the complete opposite of what he's getting.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, so he hears tale about this. I've been calling him Lemmerkind, but Bob corrected me. His name would be pronounced
Le Marchand.
Le Marchand. Oh, we got Wes Kramer in the hizzy. Sup, Wes? I don't know if his audio is working, but Yeah. But yeah, so he finds this box and he finds this he buys it and he takes it home and he does this magic rite and it opens up a portal and they these entities come out and ask him what he wants and he asks for pleasure and so they immediately subject him to inhuman torments beyond his comprehension and he's pretty not cool not happy about this he's like not having a good vibe he's not down with what's happening with the general mellow of the groove so uh um in the movie he's ripped apart like like like
It
there's
almost
pieces of him everywhere and then there's a little like at the end of the little torture scene you see a piece of meat with an eyeball in it and like a hook going through it and then you see like his mouth and like a little piece of his jaw with the hook going through it and they're like both over here and then you see his mouth open and his eye move and you're like oh my god he's still alive so
and
he's
Ugh.
like
and also his ear. Now, if you look back, this is within the first 20 pages where it describes what the Cenobites are all about, and there's 4 of them that show up, but there's supposed to be a 5th that's referred to as the judge, I believe, and they're all describing all of his words. He smelled the bitterness. It pricked his nostrils. And then the blossoms that he could smell, the tastes. He keeps using these words. The tastes. His teeth sent spasms through his system as it exuded a droplet of gravy upon his tongue. The guy is being tortured and torn apart by his 5 senses specifically. So like his eyes get ripped out, his nose gets ripped off, his mouth gets ripped off, his ears get ripped off, and what happens to his hands once the 5th Cenobite arrives and feeling is the judge of all. And it's the judge that takes off his fucking hands and rips them apart. So what Barker is describing is the pleasure of the 5 senses as they all get ripped away from you individually.
wow
And that's
Yeah,
what the whole fucking book is about.
that's what I was. That's what I was picking up on.
From the first chapter. It's put into place from the first chapter.
That's what I picked up right off of the cuff was that, the idea that they were talking about pleasure, it wasn't necessarily, it was just mass intensity. It was like, it was like the most intense of all senses. So it wasn't necessarily, they were calling it pleasure. And he even says toward the end, maybe it wasn't, maybe that's just what they called it, maybe that's how they called it, but that's not what it was. But really it was just, it's like the gravy. He talks about being able to see a mite on a diet on the corpse of a bird winking at him.
Yeah, that's like page 15, I think.
And that like turns his gut, he turns his stomach.
A dove. He sees a mite on a feather of a dove.
And and when you think about that, that is kind of, it's really
it really is. And here's the thing. Here's my takeaway is I think that Barker.
Quick, hey Bob.
What's up?
Real quick. I found it. In in the plane path through the ceiling was an awesome geography of brushstrokes. the weave of his plain shirt an unbearable elaboration of threads. In the corner, he saw a mite move on a dead dove's head and
Yeah.
wink its eyes at him,
He's talking
seeing
about, yep, vision.
seeing that
Now
he saw.
that's the visual.
I love Wink's eyes at him, seeing that he saw. Too much. Apology shut his eyes. But yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, so I think what it comes down to really quickly, I think what it comes down to is that Clive Barker perhaps experienced in the 80s a self-deprivation chamber and had this idea of what the fuck would the complete opposite of that be.
Like all complete sensation.
Total sensory overload. Like this is why when you jump out of a plane at 10,000 feet skydiving, you go into sensory overload, and like 60 to 70% of people who skydive for the first time, they pass out for 5 to 10 seconds. They completely pass out, which is why you have to either do tandem or a slip knot. You're not allowed to jump for your first time in complete control of your own parachute, because
matter of fact, I think you got to go,
and it's crazy. And I've done it before.
I think you got to do a couple now. I think you got to do a couple tandem before they let you go.
Yeah. Like the laws have changed.
You see people you see those roller coasters when that shoot people up.
Yep.
And they always have videos of them watching. You'll see people passing out 2 or 3 times, and they'll start screaming, and they'll pass out, and then they'll wake up and they'll scream again. That's exactly what that is. It's just overload. It's just
total sensory overload.
When they come to, they're like, "We're not done." Oh God.
Yeah, and I think that's what he's getting at is basically it's the complete polar opposite of sensory deprivation, is what happens when you have complete sensory overload, and the only logical conclusion to that is that it would be immaculately painful, and I choose my words carefully.
Yeah. Because there is pain is a very, that's what I was talking to Alex about the other day. I said, pleasure can be taught.
Yes.
And then some people can find pleasure in things that other people don't find pleasure in it at all. Pain can also, especially emotional pain, can also be taught. But when it comes to basic physical pain, it's pretty standard. There are some anomalies. Some people can handle it a little better than others, but for the most part, if any human that gets cut, they might be, somebody, I'm tough. Yeah, but it doesn't feel good. It's still pain.
Yes.
It's still there. It's still 1-0. It's on or it's off. It's happening or it's not. It's a nerve in your head. Whereas pleasure is sensory. It's, it's endorphins. Things like that. And there's a lot of different things that can go on with pleasure, but pain for the most part is physical pain is just a nerve in your brain that says, hey, something's wrong.
On that, we were talking about, in that same conversation, when we were talking about that, we were talking about how, like, if you have a pain in your tooth, if you think about that, if you're just a primitive primate, what can you do about a pain deep in your jaw, like in your tooth, right? Not a lot. So what's the evolutionary benefit of that kind of pain? And it's because you can't tell another monkey to pull it out, I guess.
It was the idea saying that there's certain pain that will if you got a loose tooth, that pain of it is almost a satisfying pain. There's almost this weird, there's certain wounds that you want to mess with for some reason, even though it's kind of painful. It's not the same thing. You'll push it to a level. And most things heal themselves in nature, and animals don't know doctors. They don't know to do things, So I think that those type of pains are nature's way of telling us to physically do this. You should be pushing on that to eventually work out whatever's in there, or to blow that tooth out because it's no good.
But it's also at the same time, monkeys don't drink Mountain Dew and consume Cheetos all fucking day long while playing video games.
Sure.
So their teeth are not going to get as fucked up.
I feel like
ours.
I feel like that's more to my point, though. So why do they have nerve endings there? You know what I mean? And it's like, or not, maybe not nerve endings, but why I don't know. Why is it such
we don't know that they have that same kind of sensory pain. And it's just assumed because it's some weird, it's just something I noticed that, and I know it's not just me, that some people have, you'll have a pain. And a lot of times it's usually I associate it with a loose tooth. It's the easiest thing to think about. One of those pains that you have that you'll push on, that you'll purposely agitate. And I don't think it's a masochism thing, I don't think you're like, I like to hurt, but I don't know. I think it's kind of instinctual. One of the things about the book, and also in the film, the puzzle. Do you think that he was using that as a deep representation, or you think that was just something to hook the story onto?
So
no, it's obviously a reference to Pandora's box.
Oh,
actually, the story, the idea for his story started with the old Greek myth of Pandora's box.
Right. It seems that way, because that's what I was thinking on the level of it is. It's like the idea that you have to, this dude's obsessed with puzzles. That's one thing they talk about. Is one thing about him is he was obsessed with puzzles.
Actually, the guy. So I don't remember where I found this out. It might have been on like some Hellraiser wiki. So I don't know. I don't remember where I got this information. But Lemmerkin, the guy, whatever the fuck his name is, I can't remember how it's actually pronounced. I keep forgetting. Lemmerkin's his name.
Le Marchand, the merchant. It's French, dude.
Oh. Well, the French should have easier names. That's their fault.
Merchant of pain, merchant of pleasure. He's the guy who made the box, not the one who sold it.
Yeah. Well, that guy, he made several portals to summon Cenobites, and they're not all boxes. One of them is just a method of making origami. I can't remember what they all were, but that one stuck out to me.
Tonight when I was trying to break,
it's so unfortunate I never made it that far into the book. The book didn't arrive until 10 p.m. last night, man. I'm fucking upset, man.
Well, earlier tonight when I was trying to break back into my car,
rest in peace.
It gave me an idea of a parody alternate version of another, puzzle that being my car trying to get into. Yeah. And every time I try something, it summons a Cenobite.
Yeah.
To mock me and my pleasure of just wanting to get in my fucking car.
I love how in the movie, Kirsty's like, "Go to hell," and he's like, I can't remember which one, but he's like, "We can't, not alone." He didn't even say it like it was like funny. He's just like, "We can't do that, not without taking you with us."
Well, sorry to cut in, but I've got a roll. But
yeah, thanks so much for coming, Emily. Do you have any shows coming up?
Oh, we have a house show coming up on the 10th, and then a show at the East Room on the 16th, I think. Let me double check. Yeah, on the 16th. So
check out The Dangerous Method on those dates and also streaming places. Thanks for coming, Emily. Have a good night.
All right. Have a good night, y'all.
Nice to meet you, Emily.
Nice to meet you too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. The 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 book is actually mostly about a failing marriage more than anything else.
Yeah.
It's about which this is something that me and Emily were kind of getting into earlier. Julia's motivation to free Frank, her overwhelming desire to be with him, from what I can tell, really we see the movie starts, and I suppose the book does too, when they get to the house. But my suspicion is that she was not that crazy about Frank until they got to the house. And Frank's presence there was just a very powerful force on her. And that's what caused her to like self-destruct her marriage and also commit these horrible crimes. I don't know how much of it was like really her. I mean, also she's probably just a piece of shit.
She had talked about when she had met him before.
Yeah.
You know, and she kind of had that feeling, but I think kind of like what you're saying, but I think also the house itself, if you look at it outside of any of the, you know, dark horror aspect of it, look at it just on the level of a failing marriage story, the house itself could have been the point of, you know, the plateau where she was finally fed up with him, you know, finally seeing all the faults, and was, because she was reminded of his brother, could do nothing but compare him next to his brother, because she still had, she obviously loved him at some point, but you know, all of these attributes about him that she was dogging on and couldn't stand were replaced by his brother.
That's a good point.
His brother had. So, you know, and then he's also kind of getting flippant with her and kind of done. You know, it's not, you know, she's pretty bad about things, but it's not like he's Rory. It's not like Rory's like the best dude.
I feel like Rory's is kind of a stick in the mud, though. He's pretty innocent, but he's not. What's happening is, like, you make an interesting point that it's like she is so done with her husband by the time that they're in that house. It makes you wonder, how did they ever get together and get married to begin with? And because at this point they've been married a few years, and it raises that question. And I think maybe they did have a much better relationship until they got there. You know what I mean? And then it's like
there's also the whole concept of the entire book begins with Frank unlocking a puzzle box in pursuit of pleasure.
Yep.
And what comes out of it is pleasure so overloaded that it's painful. And what does she do?
Pretty much the same thing.
So Frank is unlocking an inanimate object in pursuit of pleasure to the point it's so overloaded it provides pain, and she is unlocking a person instead of an inanimate object in pursuit of pleasure to the point where it creates nothing but pain.
Right. And it makes sense because the contrast of the two of them, Frank is not a dude that wants a relationship, and she actually is somebody that wants a relationship. So he wants an inanimate object and to unlock it. She wants to unlock a human.
Yes.
You know?
And so in that sense, I think that Clive Barker is exploring the possibility that more often than not, we treat other human beings as inanimate objects in pursuit of pleasure but what comes out of it is nothing but fucking pain when you do that.
Well, and on that
You're
note,
going about it the wrong way.
to go back
Me
to
and
Lauren,
me
they
and Neef
said
were just talking about how Hellraiser is not that deep, but now you got me rethinking it. Now I'm like, maybe it is really fucking deep. Go ahead, Neef.
well, on that note about the two of them, when you go back to Rory, they said that Julia was apparently she's very attractive, and the girl that everybody wanted back when she was coming up. And you also kind of see that that's almost what everybody did. Rory went for that, and then also the neighbor who's trying to push herself into things, for whatever personal reason, but she's obviously after Rory. She's got that competitive nature,
Yeah.
and so it's kind of it's like Bob was saying, but I think he's really going through almost everybody in the story has a different angle at what their pursuit is. It all boils back down to
but it's the same pursuit at the same
Right.
time. They're all of them are all pursuing pleasure.
Yeah.
And they're
but
not
getting
really
nothing but pain.
because
It reminds me of Living with Marilyn, where she would get paid $300 an hour to whip a fucking reverend whose wife wouldn't do it for him. And it's like she's like literally smacking this dude in the ass with a fucking King James Bible.
Can you give me your
And
number?
she's getting paid to do it. Like it's and I lived with this woman for 4 fucking months, dude. Like, and
Is she
I love her
accepting
to
new
death.
clients?
She's an incredible person, absolutely incredible person.
Hmm.
And if you're not fucking with her, and I wasn't, like, she would take care of you left and right. And I've never had a bigger sister, despite the fact that she's younger than me. But at the same time, like there is a point where certain people, and Clive Barker's one of them, he's a sadomasochist. I don't know if you've read his biography. That's the only thing I've ever read about him was his biography. I read his biography years ago.
That's an ironic thing to do for an author, is only read their biography.
Yeah, because I was interested, I was interested in that kind of psychology.
I'm sure he's a very interesting dude.
The Jungian shadow and shit, and dude's totally off, man. He's fucking off. And I guarantee you, if you were to ever go to a dinner party at his house and be the only guest, you would be holding a fucking coaster over your drink.
Hey,
like, the guy's fucking off. He's off.
I believe it. He wrote fucking
holding
this
coaster over your drink.
He wrote another book about it's called The Great and Secret Show, and it's about how much crazy shit goes on behind the scenes that people don't know about.
Yes.
And there's a character who he was evil. He escaped mortality. He found a loophole. I can't remember how. Became immortal and became evil. And he was imprisoned in a time prison, like a room that he couldn't get out of, that exists outside of time, kind of. But because it's Clive Barker, he found a way. Okay, what he did is he would take a shit, and then he would come on it, and then that would make these little shit come snake demons, and they were able to leave this dimensional rift and go out into the real world and fuck with people. because Clive Barker is a who hurt you?
Off.
Clive? If you're watching this, Clive, who hurt?
As Bobo said, is off.
Yeah.
Oh, he's totally off. He's completely off, dude. It's one of those things where it's like you could literally go up to this guy and point to the elf on the shelf and say, point to where you've been touched. And this guy would look at it deadpan and he would point to where? The elf's nose. And be like,
There.
he touched me right there.
Where he should
So
have.
now I have a sensory overload in my nasal passages, and I'm gonna wreak havoc on fictional characters because of it.
Yeah. That's why I do it.
That's Clive Barker. Yeah,
That's
he's fucking
actually
off, dude. He's off.
That's why all of us fiction writers do it. Is because we got touched on our nose when we were too young.
Yeah, I will.
I like that. I'm gonna wreak havoc on some fictional characters.
Yes, I will. I won't hurt you. I won't slap you. I don't have the courage to punch you in the face. I will eviscerate you in fiction. Oh, yeah. And you just wait until history swallows it. And 200 years from now, everybody will think less of you.
I'll be
You
like, whoever the
fucked
fuck
up.
this dude was, man, damn.
Yeah. Don't
For the
even
next
fucking doubt it for a
he,
second.
whoever the author was wrote this about somebody.
Yeah,
cursed.
I will
Yeah.
write. Oh, you worried? You worried? I'm a literateur. I will write a fucking poem about you. I'll write a fucking poem about you.
Mhm.
Yeah, you could curse a name like the way the name Karen's been
Yeah.
cursed.
No, it's the complete
Lord.
and most immaculate curse. Like the fucking poet who eviscerates you.
Like what's
That bruise will be remembered in 300 fucking years. But if I punch you in the face, that bruise will heal
Right.
within a week.
Right.
It's kind of like
I'm going about it the right fucking way.
yeah. It's kind of like Karen's a good example of a curse name. Like you can't name your kid Karen now.
Mm-mm. No.
Or you can't be Karen either. You might as well just give up if you're a Karen.
Well, that's why I started calling my mother Ma instead of Karen.
Oh, I didn't know your mom was a Karen. I wouldn't have said that. I'm sorry.
No, my mom is named Karen. She's the complete opposite of a Karen.
She's an anti-Karen.
She is an anti-Karen, absolutely. She's the kind of person who will show up to a restaurant and order a steak medium rare, and when it shows up medium well, she'll be like, waste not, want not, I'll eat it.
Oh, I would kill somebody.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I would kill someone if they were like if I paid
my
for a
mom,
steak and they
mom's
didn't cook
totally
it right.
cool about that shit.
They
Her only
overcooked it. Oh,
problem
yeah.
is that her name is
Done
literally Karen.
I would turn into a Karen. I would Hulk out. I'd turn green, and you don't like me when you don't like me when I'm hungry. And then it's
Right.
like, yeah,
See, this would have been an issue, but since I'm hungry, and I know it's going to take even longer for me to eat because I'm not eating this garbage. Now it's a problem.
Hey, speaking of, we have a new segment on the podcast. It's Alice. This is the first time we're doing it, so it's so me and Neef like to eat, and Neef occasionally will go get bougie breakfast. I think that's pretty self-explanatory actually.
I mean, yeah, it's when you pay more money than you probably should for breakfast items.
Yeah. And like you sit down somewhere, it's even more bougie when you do it by yourself. So,
Oh yeah.
how was your
I
bougie
gotta
breakfast
order
this
hot
morning?
tea.
Tell us
I
about
had to-
your
I
Tell
had
us
it
about
at First Watch on 8th Avenue. And
Okay.
yeah, it was actually really good because they weren't real busy. They actually sat me in a seat. I didn't have to walk to the bar and sit there like I was planning on having a shot before going to work at 9 in the morning. So they sat me in. Yeah, no, it was really good. I got my Belgian waffle, which I'm still debating if it's a true Belgian waffle, though they are good. And it came out, it was hot, the butter melted on it, so I couldn't complain. You know, it was quick because it was good work. Good work.
That's not the story I was wanting to hear. You were telling me about yesterday. Tell me about yesterday.
Yesterday,
Yesterday, all my troubles were pancakes.
yes, they were from the Pancake Pantry downtown, which I had not been to an establishment of that in ages.
We're making
And
friends and enemies on this show.
I remembered why, because, you know, granted, I felt a little bad because they were packed and I was like by myself and they sat me in a booth. There's no like single tables in that place. So a lot of tourists were kind of like waiting, wondering why I was sitting there eating my silver dollar pancakes, which my biggest complaint is I don't want to see our own homemade maple syrup. You don't make maple syrup. Maple trees make fucking maple syrup. If you're making maple syrup homemade, that means you're putting something else in it besides maple syrup, and that's not cool. So I probably won't be returning there. That's it's not.
Sounds to me like your heart might be hellbound.
It is.
I love hearing Neve talk about breakfast because he's so fucking bougie. He's
You know what it is? That's my that's gonna be my that's my puzzle. I'm gonna make Belgian waffle, and it's gonna call up a Cenobite. A certain mixture.
All I know, Alice, is if your Neve ever walks into your breakfast joint, like treat him right.
I'm gonna start going in there like Pinhead and shit.
You're beginning to make me think that that lacquer, because Clive Barker mentioned lacquer about a dozen fucking times within the first 5 pages while describing the puzzle box. And I think that
thanks for bringing it back.
Perhaps the solution to your problem with pancakes is that you should cover them in lacquer.
I think you're onto something, Bobo. Or maybe their homemade maple syrup was more like lacquer than maple syrup.
Make that shit extra shiny. You can solve the puzzle faster. Slides right out.
Is your mic working, Wes? Mic test.
Oh, hey,
Wes. We can't hear you, buddy. But yeah. Back to Clive Barker and Hellraiser.
So are Cenobites like anything like Cinnabons?
Yes. Let's leave it there. They are similar.
Maybe there should be a breakfast place that's like Hellraiser themed. And they'll have, Cenobites.
That actually sounds fucking lit, dude.
Now that actually makes me curious because Le Marchand is the one who made the puzzle, and that translates to the merchant in French. And so he's the merchant of pleasure and pain, but he's not the one who sold it to him. And you and I were talking about this earlier before Neef rolled up. But
he talked about other owners.
Kircher is the actual merchant, but Agnathius Kircher from the Renaissance is an actual fucking alchemist and Kabbalist who created the the Kabbalistic tree of life that we currently know today and use within the occult community. I mean, and that's so interesting to me. Now I want to know, where did he get Cenobites from? Because it makes me think that it's a combination of words, in the sense that Marlowe's got this idea of intelliology, which is a combination of intelligence and teleology. And teleology is the progression of an idea. And so it would be intelligence combined with the formative progression of forwarding that intelligence. You get what I'm saying? So it's like,
Yeah.
so what is a Cenobite? Well, I mean, we know what bite is, and we know Ceno is from an underwater bottom feeding fucking creature.
Sorry.
And I think it might be a combination of those two things. I don't know.
The prefix Ceno means recent or new. That actually
Means
would
what?
make a lot recent or new, which would make a lot of sense because they call themselves pioneers. They're on the fringe of experience.
Well,
Yeah,
there you
they
go.
can talk about that, the fringe of experience.
Yeah. So Ceno, what does bite mean?
Well, bite is in bite, but also bite is in it's also an aquatic term. Fuck, I can't remember off the top of my head where which aquatic creatures have that name, but there's an aquaticism to the whole Cenobite thing, like, because I mean, it makes sense, because Cthulhu from Lovecraft comes from under the water, and under the ocean is the formation of the collective fear of the unknown in humanity. So it makes sense that it would be in underwater creature. Fuck, I'd have to look it up, but yeah, it's
I'm having trouble finding etymology. Like, there's a lot of definitions. Like, there's obviously digital definition. I want an actual definition. It looks like the colloquial definition's like completely fucking taken over, but where did this word originate? Oh, okay. It originated in the 1960s. That's why.
what did the bite part?
The word bite, yeah. BYT.
Let's say, would that be as in the digital?
That would be a bite in the sense of computative knowledge.
Oh,
Or
but Cenobite
quantification.
Cenobite is spelled with an I. I'm a
Yes.
fucking idiot. Okay, so what is bite as a suffix? You were telling me about water. I was just trying to see if I could find more information about it. Oh well, I'm having trouble. Oh well. Clive Barker has another cool book called Mr. Be Gone, and it's about it's about a demon trapped inside of a book, and the book communicates directly to the reader, And it's like the book is talking to you. And it's like, hey, you need to burn this book because I've been trapped inside of it by an evil wizard. And it's like, if you don't burn this book, I'll curse you and like your family. And like basically the whole time you're reading this book, this demon is trying to convince you to burn the book you're reading. And I thought it'd be interesting to do for the book club too, because it's not a book you're supposed to talk about. It kind of takes some of the magic away when you because it's very personalized. You know what I mean? So I don't know. It's kind of a taboo thing to do for a book club, so maybe we should do it. Um, Clive is a fucking genius, and in conclusion of that statement, he's written a lot of really um terrific landscapes. Like he, it's really easy, you know, when we talk about like epic fantasy, it is so easy to fall into Tolkien tropes. What epic fantasy have you seen that doesn't, you know, play with dragons and uh with elves, orcs, you know? It's like everything is Lord of the Rings. And it's easy to do that in any genre. And I feel like even though Clive got his stride in the 80s and the 90s, he really brought a lot of fresh experience to the horror genre. Um, and a lot of his effectiveness is in the way he says things. Like it's not, his concepts are neat too. There's a lot to it's a lot of like Hellbound Heart, for example, is a very neat and interesting concept that I think no one had really thought of, especially at the time that it came out in 87. So um but also just the execution, the way he talks about stuff, makes him one of the most effective horror writers that I can think of.
So I
Um,
just found it, and etymologically, Cenobite it's pronounced Cenobite, is the old French for a member of an ecclesiastical order,
okay.
and it comes from the Latin cenobita.
Okay, so it was a word
So
before
it's
then.
literally a French word for a member of a monastery, a monk.
Wow.
So
Wow.
it means, it basically means monk or nun.
That makes sense because they almost do seem like they're, monks.
In the second book, they have one called the corrupt priest, I think is his name, or the hell priest. That's what it is. And the sequel, there's a sequel to this book, by the way. This book was written in 87. In 2011, he wrote a sequel called The Scarlet Gospel, a long time after a lot of the Hellraiser movies came out. Fun fact, Pinhead, the character you can see inside my head right now, uh, he's by far the most famous character from the Hellraiser franchise. But Pinhead is a name given to him by fans, and Clive Barker hates it. He hates that people call this character Pinhead. His official name is the Engineer.
Yes, the Engineer. And on page, I think it's page 7, might be page 12, this character is described as a woman.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
It's yes, it's
Yeah.
the character itself is completely androgynous.
But yeah, it's androgynous, but it's actually described to be more feminine. I think he even goes on to say how it's, almost looks like a beautiful woman.
No,
but
it speaks like a beautiful woman.
yeah, that's
This
yeah.
is because each character, each of the Cenobites represents one of the five senses. And
Oh,
so
shit.
this one, yes, here it is. Do you understand? The figure beside the first speaker demanded. Its voice, unlike that of its companion, was light and breathy, the voice of an excited girl.
Hmm.
Every inch of its head had been tattooed with an intricate grid, and at every intersection of horizontal and vertical axes, a jeweled pin driven through to the bone. Its tongue was similarly decorated. Do you even know who we are? It asked. That's Pinhead, specifically described as a woman.
Wow.
Yep.
The,
And that's
I was looking
on.
at the audiobooks. The audiobook, when I listened to it, one of them had a picture drawn, like a painting on the, I guess while you're listening to it, it's what the background is. And it is the engineer character, Pinhead, as a female. It's just a head and it's like a profile look, but it's very feminine. That was really interesting. And it seemed like years ago I had heard that. Somebody had told me that, or it had come up that was one of those.
Yeah.
Oh, by the
It-
way, Pinhead's actually supposed to be female or more female.
It's right there on page 8. Yep. Right at the very beginning of the book. Pinhead's described as a woman.
I didn't know that. I guess they changed it for the Hollywoods. That's also why they bullshit ended the book or the movie. I mean,
Yep.
In the book, the conclusion is, she gets a hold of the box, Kirsty, and she starts playing with it as you would naturally, and she opens it by accident, and the Cenobites come for her, and she's like, "Oh fuck." And she's like, "Wait a minute. Do you guys know Frank Cotton?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, we know Frank. We know Frank real well." And she's like, "Well, he got away from you." And they're like, "Nonsense. No one escapes us."
See, I
And
think that's in the film, because in the book they're basically kind of like, "Oh, is he still alive? Really?"
Hmm.
And they're like, "Okay, well, you'd have to show him to us and have him admit
yeah.
that it's him."
So Kirsty goes back to the house, and at this point, Frank has taken Rory's skin for himself, and he's wearing Rory's body. And um, she convinces him to admit to his crimes, and the Cenobites appear. They manifest, and they take Frank back. He has to go back after all that trouble, and he's ripped apart all over again. And in the book, the Cenobites just leave her alone because that was the arrangement that they had. In the movie, they just decide to fuck with her anyway, and so she does some Hollywood bullshit where she, like, every time one pops out around a corner to get her, she like turns it one notch and the thing will like zap back into the box. And then she's like running down the hallway trying to escape. Another one pops out and she's like, duh, and it, like, she's reversing the puzzle back to normal basically, and she's able to like fight them off. And I'm like, that was fucking stupid. Otherwise, the movie was spot on to the book, but yeah, they ruined it there at the end.
In the book, they talk about how she fumbles with it and does things, but yeah, it's not like running around and just, she doesn't know what she's doing with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is kind of weird that but I haven't seen the movie in a long time.
Yeah.
I should watch it.
Well,
Yeah, watch it when I go to sleep.
Thank you, gentlemen. This has been a lot of fun.
Thank you. I'm sorry I couldn't get to the end.
Oh, you're good.
Like I said, it didn't show up until 10 p.m. last night from Amazon. I'm like, motherfucker.
No worries.
So,
No worries. We'll do something fun next month too. I have a couple ideas in mind that we talked about before Alice got here, but I
Jesse
haven't quite decided
Bullington,
yet.
The Sad Tale of the Brothers Gross Part.
Yeah, how long is that one?
It's hilariously short.
Well,
about 200 pages.
okay, it's either that or A Christmas Carol.
Which is longer.
The Christmas Carol is like 100 pages. Emily said 90 pages.
Christmas? You mean the Charles Dickens one?
Yeah, Charles Dickens.
Oh yeah, I guess that is kind of short.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot to it.
So we might do that for Christmas, Alice, because it'll be right there around that time. Originally published in 1843. That's fucking old.
Definitely.
Let's see how old The Sad Tale of Brothers Gross Part is.
Well, how about this? What J.R.R. Tolkien considered the most difficult character to translate?
What?
Sir Gawain in The Green Knight, A Christmas Game.
I think I know that one.
All right.
Entirely A Christmas Story.
So this book that Bob recommended was published in 2009, which I feel a lot better about than 18. Charles Dickens book from 1800s. Sounds dry as hell, to be honest with you.
But we already all know the story.
It's dry. It's dry as fuck, dude.
I don't have to read that shit. I can, watch the Disney version.
But if you want to talk about an alcoholic priest hunting demons alongside two ugly fucking grave diggers.
Here's my question. Does it have a Christmas scene?
I think it does.
Okay, I'm in. Alice, for December on the book club, can I get a drum roll, Bobo? Okay, Neve. The Sad Tale of Brothers Gross Part. Ba-da-da-da. So that'll be fun. I'm excited about that. You hyped it up for sure. The plot seems very
it's fucking hilarious, dude. Even if it doesn't include a Christmas scene according to my memory, you're gonna fucking laugh your ass off out loud in public while reading this shit. Like I
better have a Christmas scene. Bob.
I embarrassed myself in public on a bus from Prague to Romania reading this shit to pass the time, and I couldn't stop fucking laughing. It's too, like, the book literally begins with an explanation of why there's a town in Europe called fuck. It's fucking great, dude. Like, there's nothing like it. Jesse Bullington's fucking hilarious. But yeah, let's do it.
I'm gonna have to think about this because you said it was like 200 pages, but this says it's 321 pages, and now you're saying there may or may not be a Christmas scene in here.
Well, it reads like 200 pages.
Okay, we'll see. I'm looking for something Christmas themed here. So
Sir Gawain in The Green Knight.
Huh?
Sir Gawain in The Green Knight.
Oh, actually.
Translated by J.R.R. Tolkien.
Okay. How long is that?
It's an epic poem. It's not too long. And there's also a film about it.
Yeah, they just made that, right?
And it's hands down probably my second favorite film of all fucking time. It's genius. The dude took an epic poem about killing Jack and the Beanstalk into an art house film and actually got that shit greenlit. I was literally like, Neef is laughing. I studied it 3 times in college with 3 different professors. 20 minutes into this movie, I was literally in fucking tears. I was in tears. I was crying. Because it totally blew my fucking mind that anybody could have possibly convinced a room full of producers to greenlight an art house version of a medieval epic poem by Anonymous. And it's one of the most gorgeous things I've ever seen in my life. Watch the film first. It's on Prime Video. Watch the film first, and then decide whether or not you think it's worth reading.
Okay.
Yep.
That sounds fair. All right. Alice, we'll see you next week on the podcast, and then we'll see you at the end of next month with something for the book club. Fuck around and find out. Facts.
All right. Love you guys. Have a good one.
Love you too, man. Have a good night.